Hi, teachers. Miss Carol, and it's time to perhaps get into the Word a little bit with your children this week. Our story for this week is called An Enemy Converts. And if you think about it for just a little bit, I bet it wouldn't take you long to come up with St. Paul on the road to Damascus. And that's our story for this week. The objective is found on the front page of the teacher's guide that's downloaded below. And the objective is that we want the children to know that I understand God picked me, God chose me to be his child, and he made me into something new at my baptism. So that's what we're trying to get across to the kids today. And for a launch activity, if you have some Play-Doh, that might be a good thing to use this week. And ask your children to form it into a ball, and so they can roll it around until they have a ball. And then say, now, can you make it into a pancake? And so you might have a table that they could squish it on. That would work a lot better than this. But you squish it until it's a pancake. You get the idea. The point is, they changed it. They changed it from being a ball to being a pancake. So we are able to change the Play-Doh, but God is able to change our hearts and change us into a new creation. That's the point of the story today. So after you talk about that with the Play-Doh, you might want to tell the story, and there's several ways to do it this week. There are the Bible narratives for older and younger children that you might use. And in the one down here at the bottom, there is some bold dark print. And one of the suggestions in the teacher's guide is that as you get to that part of the story, you stop and have the children say, God is at work here. And each time they say God is at work here, you pause and say, yep, that's a spot in the story where God is working. Another way, it's a good one to act out because there's lots of action, the bright light, and he goes blind, and he persecutes the Christians. There's lots of action. So you might want to have them act out the story. I'm also going to include a video below where I'll read this arch book to the children. So you can use that as well. You can have them listen to me read the story. And we talk about how Paul was imprisoning Christians and putting them in jail, and the Christians were afraid of him because they knew that he hated Christians. He was killing as many of them as he possibly could. And then he was on the way to Damascus to do just that very thing, catch Christians and imprison them. He had an okay from the king to round up as many of them as he could. And on the way to Damascus, God had other plans. The bright light came, Paul was blinded. He asked who it was. It was the Lord. And then his friends took him the rest of the way to Damascus because he couldn't see. He was there for 3 days, and Ananias came and laid hands on him, cured the blindness, and Paul started immediately. He was changed and started gathering people for Christ instead of killing Christians. So that's the gist of the story. You can tell it your way or have the children listen to the story below. Then there are the discussion questions that'll help you get a little bit more into the story. Where was Paul when he was changed? How did God change him? You saw God at work in Paul's life. How is God at work in your life, in your child's life? So that's some questions to help them read, get a little bit more out of the story. Then there is the Live page with lots of suggestions for getting into the story. One that I think would be fun is pudding, instant pudding, how it's a powder, and you, let your children help, can change it into a good dessert. We can change things like powder and pudding and Play-Doh, but we can't change hearts the way God can and the way he did in Paul's life. Then Paul went on to go on lots of missionary journeys and gathered lots and lots of people and turned them to Christ. So he truly was changed right away and was now interested in spreading the good news that God wanted them all to be his friends, and they could be his friends because of his death on the cross and his resurrection that showed that he did pay the price for our sin, and God accepted that sacrifice. And now we are changed creatures. In our baptism, God changes us. God changes you. God changes your child and turns them into a new creation. There's some other suggestions like getting a picture of an old person and a young person, or getting a picture of something old and something new, and how God can make things new, can make people new, can make hearts new. So the teacher's guide is downloaded below and is there for you. Also, the storybook reading is down below for you to use with your children. Have fun with St. Paul. I'd love to see some pictures if you act them out, but enjoy sharing that good news story with your children about how God changed Paul, and God changes us in our baptism. That shows he loves us so much, and we know nothing can take that love away. Nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Have a good week. God's blessings. Stay well. Bye-bye.